So I thought I'd share this story, and it's going to be one of the few times I talk about issues and stuff, discourse, because I'm the type of person where I have opinions, but like they don't need to be heard. Do you know what I mean? And I feel like some people in this app are very narcissistic when it comes to wanting their opinions and their think pieces to be heard. So, and I feel like it can be overwhelming as a viewer just to have so many think pieces at once. But I'll share this story just so you're aware if you're a young black woman, because I know that's the majority of my audience. But I've been seeing a discourse going around about how life is for you when you are a black woman who is very attractive. Or perceived very attractive, to the point where people are almost thrown off or phased because you don't live up to the stereotype or the expectation that they have of you and what you encompass and what you are. And for me, this is mostly prevalent, or has been so prevalent when I've been traveling. So I solo travel quite a bit. And previously, like I've solo traveled like in Europe by myself, and I do find when I meet, like other female travelers from Western countries, mainly they're white female travelers, we get on well. But I think at the start there's a bit of apprehension, especially when it comes to getting to know me, because there's a bit of apprehension to wanting to befriend me, if that makes sense, because I don't live up to the stereotype maybe that they've had in their head of what a black woman is, and kind of also feeling uncomfortable where we'd be in a situation where a man may try and talk to me and not talk to them, and they're not expecting that because they're used to being kind of the beauty standard or the person who would get approached, right? And I found this like really prevalent when I was in Brazil. And if you've ever been to Brazil before, Brazil is super multicultural, right? And their beauty standard I think is quite different from the West. Obviously still some elements, but I think it's way more fluid, and I think it just reflects the society of Brazil. Like, it's so multicultural, there's so many people there. You see like black women out with their natural hair, and people embracing like their heritage and stuff way more. So obviously that is different, a bit more confronting for a Western kind of white person to enter, or white woman to enter. And I don't know, I just find it a bit more prevalent when I was traveling in Brazil, and I would come across other kind of solo travelers, female solo travelers, who were from like Western countries like France, Canada, like the UK, Germany, and watching them navigate not being the beauty standard and not necessarily being chosen when in the company of myself, and then also seeing them be apprehensive to befriend me because of that and because of the way I look. Like, and I don't even want to sound like very big-headed and being like, oh, I look so good that people didn't want to befriend me. But I also think that there's also an element of that, and it's hard to ignore. And I think in my time of like having female friendships, I've built really good long-lasting female friendships, but there's always been that apprehension there of being my friend or wanting to start that friendship. And also I find like some elements of negging as well from the solo like female travelers that I meet as well. I had an example of like one girl who I met, and she was Canadian, and what's crazy is she was a kind of other like woman of colour, if you want to put it that way. And I say that lightly because I still think that even despite her being a woman of colour, you can't ignore the fact that there's a perceived hierarchy of racial attractiveness, and unfortunately black women fall at the bottom of that, even though I don't think that should be the case. But she, I think, was very thrown off by just me in general, just very phased, and would make comments. So an example would be like, where we were staying, for example, the hostel we were staying at, I bumped into her one time. And I think I was just going to bed, and I had like a night dress or just a dress on. She made comments about me wearing a dress to bed and was like, oh, like, you're wearing a dress to bed, why are you so dressed up to go to bed? Like, I didn't know you were doing that. And then at breakfast the next day, she was just telling people like, oh yeah, she wore like a dressing gown to bed, like, didn't know he was doing that, like, I wish I was a bit more put together, or like, I don't know, but it was just making comments in a way that it was just felt very uncomfortable. And she continued to make these comments, even now that like I'm not even in Brazil anymore. She sent me an Instagram message and was like, I posted a picture of me at the gym, and she was like, oh my God, do you only just wear one nail colour all the time? Because my nails are always red. And I've still yet to reply, but it's just things like that where it's like, the undertone of it is just very, it's just giving like, I'm not confident within myself, or I feel that you're a threat to me, or you just make me feel very uneasy. And it's a really hard thing to describe. And I just want a lot of young black women to be cognizant of that, and don't allow that to put you down. And also don't think that people aren't attracted to you, or you're not going to be the beauty standard, or you're not going to get attention, because I've been in so many situations where I was the attention in the room, and you have to learn how to handle people's reactions to that, and also not let that affect you and how you view yourself, because people will attempt to put you down, especially when it comes to the attention of men, because they're male-centered and they want to be picked. But if you are the type of person where, like, you don't even have to do anything and you still get the attention, even though in their head, from what they've been taught, from, from what they've perceived, you're not meant to get the attention. So when it's not going to plan, when it's not panning out as how they have learnt, of how they've grown up, of how they've perceived the world, when it flips, like it's flipped on its head, and it's like, oh, she's getting attention, but how come she's getting attention? She's dark-skinned, she's, I don't know, she's this, she's that. Like, it makes a lot of people very uneasy. So that was very long-winded, but that's just an example. Let me know, you guys, if you want any more examples, or you kind of like these talking think pieces. Deuces.